call this meeting to order. I think I'm just going to get out there right away. I think the first line of business is Denny has stepped down as chairman of the board, and that position needs to be filled. I think that needs to be, we need to deal with that publicly first of all, posted first of all. So I guess the first step, and what I do have here from Denny is I asked for a letter of record or a letter of resignation. He basically answered an email that I asked the question. So I'll read that email for you guys so you are all on the same page with me, and I'll turn that over to Tina. Basically, and I sent it out to everybody, so you probably all did see it.
Yeah.
But for everybody here that hasn't seen it, I sent this out on Friday, July 1st. Denny made it known that as of June 30th, that was his last day. Okay. You made it clear during the June meeting that you'll be stepping down from the chair position of the board as of June 30th. You will also like to step back from the operator's position, but have agreed to bridge the gap for the next 3 months, allowing us time to go through the process of finding a replacement for the operators. Now, I have a comment on that we'll have to add to that, but I'll just get through this. Thank you so much. Basically, I thank him for what he did. Thank you so much for what you have done for the community. It's very underappreciated, and I know you can continue to be around to lend a hand and or advice. I basically said I'd probably personally be reaching out for that. I think we all will, if we need to. I'm hoping you can provide a few things is basically what I asked for this meeting. An official letter of resignation from the chair position. And his answer was yes, as of June 30th, I will step down as chairman and a new person can come aboard. He did mention after a 30-day disconnect with the board, as required per para, he would be happy to fill a board position. It doesn't really mention anything about stepping away from the operator's position. I think due to the information that he gave us, or we talked about last month, of bridging the gap for 3 months of bill. But he did indicate to me, and I think there's a conflict here, that he has to be disconnected to collect para. So I don't know how he can be operator in any sense and still collect that para. So I think, in my eyes, he's stepping down from both positions.
That is the assumption, or that's what I understood from the conversation that we had during last week.
Okay, so we're all agreed that Denny is no longer chairman of the board or operator.
Correct.
Okay, can we make that note in the minutes, please?
That we've accepted his resignation for both positions that he made during the last meeting.
Right.
Yeah.
I guess the next step at this point in time, are there any nominations for the chair position?
I was going to ask a question on that. In one of the emails I sent out, I quoted what I thought was something from our bylaws, but I went through both books that were given to me, along with researching, Shorewood Park Sanitary District online. I don't think we have any bylaws. I don't know if we have any sort of articles of succession. I don't know if a bomb were to go off here today in this building, how would they be replacing us? I mean, I don't think there's anything set out for that.
No, there is a book of bylaws.
Okay.
And you haven't seen them.
Correct.
Okay, I have that book, and we'll have to share and make sure that gets into everybody.
Okay.
So we're a little handicapped at this point, because now you're going to go off of what I remember. But there is a process for voting in members, and appointing members if there's, if so be in a special circumstances type of scenario. Ultimately, I think that we have to ask the residents if there's anybody that wants to apply for that board position. I think that's typically the steps that go on. But there's a clause saying that we can appoint a position under certain special circumstances.
That's all we're here.
Right? And I believe these are special circumstances at this point.
And we can always preface that with, once we understand what our bylaws say we're supposed to be doing, we'll immediately go back and follow every rule.
Right. I'm just gonna say, I understand that we have a lot of work to do here as a board. There's a lot of information that's gonna be coming available to us. You know, and I've got some points that we can carry on, but as far as business goes, I think we need to replace the chairperson at this point in time so we can move forward with how we're gonna do that.
Well, I make a motion to appoint you, Rich Short.
Okay, is there a second to that?
You got the time and energy for it?
Well, I guess let's see if there's a second to that first.
If you want it, say you want it. If you don't, then say you don't.
I mean, I will take that position on,
Okay.
but I mean, I have a few things that I want to talk about before, you know, I totally accept that position.
Okay.
And I want to just make sure that it's on record that there's an understanding of how I think we need to move forward
Okay.
and how we have to move forward together as a board and a community.
And I totally agree with you on that.
Okay.
I totally agree with you on that. I think we ought to have, at some point in time before our next board meeting, we ought to have a closed working session.
I agree, and I'll
Sit
get to
down
that.
and talk, and, okay.
I'll get to that,
Okay.
but I think we need to do that, because, you know, I think I've uncovered some things that I think we really need to work on.
I would not be surprised.
Okay, and I think the number one thing, of course, is going to be the operator, but we'll move on to that next.
Okay.
Okay,
I'll second the motion then.
okay, before I accept it, I just want to say a couple things that, you know, I do work full-time, and I will need help. This is not going to be a one-man show by any means. I can't do it myself. You know, I can be available during the day on certain circumstances. As you can see, I respond to all the emails pretty quick, and I pay attention to what's going on, and I will monitor that at all times. But I can't be the same person that our past operator was and past chairman was, because I can't totally give all that time. So I am going to rely on the community and other people stepping up to help take care of certain things. And I think we are going to have to develop that structure. Okay, so with that being said, that's kind of where I'm at. I hope everybody can understand that. And I want to just make sure that goes to record too. It's not going to be a one-man show with me up here. We're going to need total participation out of the board, number one, and we're going to have to reach out, and we're going to have to reach out hard to the community to help out, and we're going to want their input on just about every decision. So that's one of the things that I think that we're going to have to work on really, really hard. Before I accept it, I think it should be labeled as interim chairman of the board for the time being. Okay, that gives us the opportunity to work with where we're at, and the opportunity to make some changes if we have to, until somebody that is possibly more qualified and understands some stuff can possibly step in. So I want to leave that door open, okay? If nobody steps in, I think our next step is to at least put a limit on this interim chairman of the board for 1 year, starting effective today, okay? At that point, if nobody else steps up, or prior to that, we should reach out to the community to see if somebody else would like that position, depending on how things go in the next year. I want to leave that door open.
Question for you, Rich. When would we normally be having when was Denny's term up?
Well, in those bylaws, what I can remember, there were limitations for all positions of the board.
Okay.
And they were done in consecutive years, okay? But I think what has morphed over the years is nobody ever stepped up, so we were always in the process of appointing people, and all terms were always listed as 2 years, I believe, for the board positions. So that's something else that we're gonna have to dig into, okay? So we have some homework to do.
So that it is, you put a year on it, but it should probably be 6 months, because it's supposed to be in January.
Right, I
First
think,
meeting of the year.
Right.
You're supposed to appoint.
and that was my next point, Joel. The other portion of that bylaw was you have to have an annual meeting. So not only do we have a January meeting, there's an annual meeting that was basically set up in the bylaws, and I don't think that's ever been taken on. And in that annual meeting, there's certain special duties that go on other than our normal businesses that we typically go on. But that structure has not been followed as long as I've been on the board for the last 2.5 years.
Matt, is there a way we can take the bylaws and scan them so
Oh,
it's a
yes.
searchable document?
Okay.
And then that might be the fastest way of getting that document out there.
That book is about
To
this
the board
thick.
members?
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I've got a little bit of free time.
So that's something that you're gonna have to see and talk about.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's part of some of the structure of, I think that we have to set up as we reorganize this government entity that we have here, because it has not been run the way that it's supposed to be run. And that has to change. Number 3, we can't dwell on the past, all right? That's history. We can only take that historic information that we have and data and apply it as we make changes and learn from it. I think there's been plenty of mistakes made in the past. There's plenty of things out there, but we just have to move on, okay? And I just want to make sure that, we don't keep on going back and pounding that, because it's not going to get us anywhere. So we just have to make sure that we're moving forward as we make these changes. One thing I want to make clear is, and I'm going to work really hard on it, I just want to make sure that we always refer to the people that were here before as the past operator and the prior board and chairman, okay? I don't think we need to drag anybody's name through the mud as this moves on. So that's how I'm going to address it, that's how I'm going to move on too. If you guys can understand all that, I guess I'm just going to take a straw vote with everybody in the room here. Do they accept, would they accept me being on as the interim chair? I guess I just ask you to raise your hands right now.
Yeah, all in favor and
All in
aye.
favor?
You want us to?
I want everybody here.
Yeah.
And if you could make note of that, Tina, I'd appreciate it. All right, I accept that position of interim chairman of the board. With that being said, I think we've got a big problem that has to be taken care of right away, and that's the operator. I reached out to the MPCA and kind of asked what we need to comply. And there's some information that's handed out to the board members right now and what we need to comply from the MPCA. And it lists some things, who the operator was, what the status of that is. And as of July 1st, we have no operator. No, we don't. We cannot make any changes to the operator for our district unless a bunch of paperwork is filed. And that can only be filed by the chairman of the board, who is considered the owner of our district. So that's the quick information I got from the MPCA. And I just got it today, so I still need to absorb it. So with that being said, I don't think, with the information that I have in front of me, Bill cannot operate under him whatsoever.
He wouldn't have been operating on that.
No,
He can't. Okay.
There's no way that I see the information that I have here, Bill can operate as the operator. And that's the information that I have in front of me.
Okay.
Unless somebody can tell me any way different, he can't be our operator, and we don't have an operator.
Okay.
Now, I could be wrong, but the information is there to comply with the MPCA. It lists everything that has to be on our permit,
Okay.
okay? Now,
Are we subject to any penalties for not having an operator?
I don't know that for sure,
Okay.
but we have to work on quick on it with the operator,
Okay.
okay? Now, we do have some options. Bill would have been one of our options.
And who is that, sorry?
Bill Wood, he does hold a Class D license.
And he's a resident of Shorewood?
No,
Okay.
okay. He was apprenticing under
Okay.
our past operator. Okay, and kind of learning the position and getting that. Now, by his reaction, I can kind of tell that he's not gonna have anything to do with it. Which is fine. Quite frankly, I think what I would have proposed to him, or I think what we could have proposed to him is that opportunity to be a contractor. Or I don't think, we could have talked about hiring him on as an employee, but until we know what we can do to do that, there's a lot of information that we have to do. And find out what the best way for us to operate is.
Was our system in jeopardy?
Our system's not in jeopardy, it's running, it's fine, but we do have to work fast and come up with somebody to run it. Now, there's a contractor out of Pine City that runs Cross Lakes system and Pocahontas system. They're the same contractor that Denny hired to start scoping out some of our lines. That was one of the duties that he was working on for the last month that he was here. I did reach out to them, and they could be our operator. We could contract them to do our operation. And I did ask them to provide what that cost would be.
Out of curiosity, was Denny doing it legally? There was our past operator following state statute?
I don't know.
Okay.
That's the other thing. I've asked Danny for all of our records, or I haven't, but we have to get everything from Danny.
Mm-hmm.
Everything that he has in his house that belongs to the sanitary board is no longer his. There was a lot of information in that shack over there, and I don't know where that went. All of a sudden it's gone. We talked about going through that and trying to gain some information and knowledge of our system, and all that information is gone. So I don't know where that is. I know there's only a couple people that have the key to get into that shack, but I know that a lot of those records are gone and I don't know where they are anymore. I'm not gonna dwell on it, but whatever Denny has now, I'll go up and ask for whatever he has. Now, I don't know too much about this information or what we can do in our next steps, but we're either gonna have to ask for counsel, and I can share the email to all of you that came from the gentleman that I talked to at the MPCA. But I think if we have to ask for any legal assistance to work through this, that's probably gonna have to come from the League of Cities. Because we do pay them a certain amount of money for, advice and so on and so forth. And this is one of the things that need to be tackled real quick. So we're gonna have to conquer and divide to kind of set that up and find out what we need.
I just want to be clear, so somebody went into that water house and took all the
I'm
records?
just making some assumptions. They're not there anymore. I don't know where they are.
Because there was things, originally we talked about, when I had first taken the position over, when I first went in there was a number of boxes of documents, and my concern was that they were in cardboard and they were on the floor, and I'm like, man, if we got some heavy rain or something, we could be in real trouble here. So my goal was to go through, because there was a lot of old documents in there too. There's old payroll information in there. We want to make sure that it's disposed of properly. So I said we need to put them in plastic totes, get them up off the ground, maybe on pallets or shelves, something and then get rid of anything that's not necessary in there anymore, and just basically clean up that storage shed, because it needs to be maintenance. Is more or less what it is.
Who was in there last then? Well, have you been in there this last month?
I've been in there last month, yes.
When were you in there last?
The night I saw you and Bill,
Yeah, okay.
because I was posting minutes.
Yeah.
Do you know how long that was?
Probably 2 weeks ago, I would say.
I don't know if that's something we have to go back and beat on, or we just move on, but I think really, at this point in time, we have to get whatever Denny has. Because right now, we've been asking, I don't know what bills have to be paid. Our hands are tied right now. We don't know what our budget is. I don't know what bills have to be paid. Because when Wendy left, it kind of left us in a lurch too, because she picked up and left too. So there's a lot of work that we really have to understand what our budget is and who we have to pay and what bills are out there. Danny handed me a couple bills here the other night when he did hand me his letter of resignation, and one's past due from April. So, anything that's been coming to him shouldn't be going there. We have to stop it. We don't know what it
It
is.
should be, all the bills should be going to the post office.
They should be going to a PO box, right? So I know there's a safe deposit box that had some stuff in there, and I don't know what was in there. Dean has that information.
Yeah. I'd given the keys to Denny, and he and Dean were gonna go there, but I didn't get the key back. So,
And what I thought was in there was whatever documents, and then a floppy disk of our, the plans for our system. The other person that's listed on our permit, so I got the permit number and what our permit on operating stuff is Tim Corby. He's basically been our engineer. He's another source that we can go out to help us work through this and give us the right direction. He can recommend other operators or other people because he is very, very tied into it. And that was a suggestion of the gentleman that I talked to from the MPCA. Now that gentleman from the MPCA also gave me Haley, and I've got her name right here. She's our compliance person. She'll be the one that would be assigned for us to comply. So that's another person that we're gonna have to reach out to make sure that we do comply and what our next steps are. So there's a little bit of work that has to happen for that, and I can continue to do that. But I can tell you right now, it's gonna cost us money to engage with Tim Courtney. If he does anything for us, pulls out a piece of paper, he's gonna charge us. So I don't know if that's necessarily the route. The other route would be to lean on that contractor that we hired to bridge the gap. Right now, I don't think we have any other choice but to reach out to this company, which is LJJ Wastewater Maintenance. That's who is the company that I talked about that does.
They're the others doing their
things.
scoping.
That they're the ones doing our scoping. They have several people with Class D operators that would fulfill part or help us comply to what our permit is. In the short term, there's a bunch of forms that got to be filled out and sent to the MPCA, changing who is the chairman of the board, the owner of the district, basically is what they call that, along with who's going to be the operator. Right now, they put a flag on it, and if the past operator does reach out, nothing's going to happen at this point in time. But what we have to provide for them is the meeting minutes stating the change that was made here. And then we can move forward, at least with our operator's license.
So if I say the account is flagged as pending until paperwork is submitted with the new operator and chairman, that would be, okay.
Yep.
So does Tina have that information to forward the minutes then, or are you going to?
Well, right now, I'll send that email out that I had. I'll send it out right now. Well, I'm going to have to do it because I'm not on the website. But I'll send that email out. I can read some of the highlights that he did state. But what I think we need to do is we need to absorb that information. And I think we need to basically try to set up another special meeting in the next week. I don't think we're going to have to do a lot of work here in the next couple months to get to where we comply. We can talk about some of the other outside things that are going on. We can rush, pay bills on that stuff. But I think we really need to hold back until we get ourselves into the proper operating scenario at this point in time. We can talk about it, but I think, just to follow some of the agenda here,
Yeah.
I think that we need to just kind of table it, and move on, with some of the other stuff. Because I'm going to have to lean on some of the other people to kind of help put together where we're going to go.
The barn's on fire, we don't need to replace it. No light bulb and.
No, this is what he did say, and I said, are we in trouble? I mean, it's something we have to take care of fairly quick, but this happens often. Okay, so first step was reaching out to him. I guess the next thing that we need to decide is what steps are we going to do to get in compliance with our sewer system first and get our license going and keep us operating.
Are we out of compliance? Is that what you're implying?
We don't have an operator at this point.
Okay, that's just making us out of compliance.
Right. Well, a couple things made us out of compliance. Naturally, Denny's license lapsed as of July 1, and we didn't know that.
Okay.
So that automatically made us out of compliance. Now, he reached out to us 2 meetings ago before we knew he was going to step down and let us know that he's going to be going to get his license updated on July 26th. And we kind of gave him the okay to go to that. So I want to make sure that, we rescind that we're not going to provide him any funds to capture his license. If he wants to go to that, that's on his deal. If he wants to keep his license up to date, that's on him at this point in time. In my mind, he's stepped back totally from everything to do with Shorewood Sanitary Park. That's basically what has to happen with where we are with trying to get in compliance with our permit to work as a sewer system. What I know, but I think I'm gonna need some help understanding some of that information that was tossed out to me today from NPCA. So I'd like to send it to the fellow board members too, so they can take a look at it. And I think we need to come back in a week and try to put together a plan at that point on how we're gonna fill that position. I will reach out to that second person, the compliance person, because she did not really, she did not respond to me yet. But there are some pretty distinct steps on what has to happen and how we can get the ball rolling and get the right information that is tagged along with our permit. I will reach out to Tim Corby and see if I can just get some information out of him without, and if he is gonna charge us, I'll ask him the question, what would it cost for you to help us through this process? Because he is tied to us with that expansion.
Who is Tim Corbin again? And
Tim
why
Corbin.
is he in charges for everything we do?
Tim Corby is an engineer that has been a record that has been tied, or is actually tied to our permit. He is listed as our contracted engineer. Tim Corby is also the person that applied for the permits for the expansion. Our original permit is expired, period, was expired. But basically because we applied for an expansion, we were in compliance. And that's something else that needs to be explained a little bit further. So our original operating permit had expired. And once we went into the process a couple years ago of going through this expansion, it kind of put it on a freeze mode. And up until the first, and I don't know if that guy that I talked about realized that Denny's license had lapsed. I know for electrical license, there's like a 30-day grace period, you have time to react to that, but I don't know how it applies to the NPCA and how stringent they are on that. I think it's a little bit different when you're dumping waste, so there's still some more information that has to be unturned and dug up at that point in time. I mean, I'm just like you guys, now what do we do? And I think we got our hands full a little bit. I think we need to roll up our sleeves and conquer and divide what's going to have to happen.
So Rich, did you say you contacted these people in Pine City or whatever?
Right. So I
Is
have,
that our immediate need, like, is to get somebody here to, us to hire somebody
right.
before?
He's put together a number that they would charge on a monthly basis. And typically what they do is they'll sign like a 2 to 3 year contract with an entity. Basically is what they do. So you would sign them up for a contract for a monthly base wage of what they do. He already told me that they would do everything that Danny did, plus maintain our pumps for that same price. I'm not necessarily the price, whatever price that they provide. Right now, we pay Denny, and on top of paying it, we paid our past operator a fee, plus on top of that, any maintenance that would happen to our pumps and stuff, we'd have to pay that, which was done semi-annually. So the PMs were done on the pumps at least twice a year, and there were some other things along the line that were done too. But all that work would be included whatever their fee is that they would charge us on a monthly basis.
So when that is presented to you, do we have to vote on that? So as soon as that happens, shouldn't we do a meeting, or are you gonna do that via?
I don't think, we cannot, that's another problem that we gotta talk about. I don't think we can make any decisions and do anything via email. We have to meet in person as a board.
And that's easy enough to.
That would make sense, but something like signing a 2-year contract, I don't think we would be calling an emergency meeting for something like that. I think that should be best done. We put in the minutes that it's going to be discussed at the next, met on, discussed, and voted on at the next board meeting. Unless the MPCA says that we've got to get something done by Tuesday.
Well, we're out of compliance.
We're out of compliance right now, and they realize we're
have
out.
a month.
Yeah, I don't know if we do or not. There's still some more information that we still gotta dig into. And I think from now on, basically what's gonna happen is I'll try to correspond via email. And, you know, I think that's the best way to do it at this point. And then collectively, I think we have to decide if we have to put a special meeting to make any. I think before we make any decisions on which way we gotta go, I think we gotta meet as a board and do that. We can't do that via email and voting via email. I don't think that's the proper way to do it.
I agree. When can I get a look at the bylaws? Because I haven't spent a couple hours on it.
I can hand out, I have one set of those books of bylaws.
Yeah.
I guess what we need to do is, that's one of the things that really have to happen. The way that I look at it, the way the sanitary district is kind of set up right now, Danny, or the past operator, it's gonna take me a while, has always been the sewer system's number one, roads are second. Anything after that is kind of, you know, off to the sides. And I would tend to believe that what we talked about is parks and associated grounds should be part of that. Because we do pay taxes on those common grounds, and it's under Shorewood Sanitary District. So I think we are the governing body of those properties, because we pay taxes on it, and that's what, in the eyes of the county, that belongs to us or everybody within the community. So that's something else that I think that we can come up with some general rules and govern that, and then it should just take care of itself. But there are no general rules that can protect us and safeguard us on some certain things. So I think we all realize that over the years, that it's just kind of gone, and people have just taken care of it over the years here and there as things have changed. But it's always been a real gray area that I think we just need to get out in front of people that there are going to be some rules coming out. You know, and I don't know if we can break up into committees. You know, certain committees taking certain things. That'd be something that we'd have to look into the bylaws. Do we set up a committee that actually deals with, you know, dealing with our contractor of choice for the sewer? And anything that comes up during the month, you know, they report that back to a meeting. Finance, and figure out our budget. I don't think that needs to totally fall on Tina, who is a hired employee of the district, which is the only hired employee of the district at this point in time. Now, of course, one of the things that we got to sort out is she a contractor or is she a hired person? That all comes into that pair thing that we have to sort out, which is part of the other thing that we haven't figured out here.
So I'm going to just throw this out there. If we all get on Google, and the three of us are, if you guys sign up for a Gmail account, we can work on these items all together, either simultaneously or separately, and we can log what we find out. So let's say you're working on, you know, either you guys you're working on something specific, you go to the certain document on our Google Drive, and you type in the notes of what you found out that day. And then anybody on the board can go to that document and see that in live time. You can actually watch somebody type.
Yeah,
It's in live.
They can't edit it, so correct.
And you can set parameters. I mean, obviously we'll all have editing rights to these documents, but nobody else will.
Okay.
And
But
I think
I can't edit your document or his document.
it's in history. So if you erase something, I'm not saying if I erase something that you type, there'll be a history log entry in there that says that Matt erased this or whatever. So you can actually restore. So let's say you edit something accidentally and your computer crashes, and that edit is saved. You can actually restore previous. Every single entry you can restore, step by step by step.
Okay.
So it's all very it's all very public. Let's put it that way. There's no erasing anything without anybody else knowing about it. And I think that's the best way for us to be able to work on these things together. Because I personally want to be involved in all of these things. I think it's beneficial if we're all involved in all of these movements, because then we're all in the know, and we all can answer to our residents. We can all jump in if somebody's family member has an issue or something one day or whatever. We can all jump in, and we're all on the same page, and we can all move forward.
Okay, I think because you're talking a little bit outside my language of how we can do that documentation. I mean, I'm good with putting letters together and emailing, passing on information on it, but that's something I can pick up fairly quick.
Absolutely. Basically, you create an online document, and it's in our community drive, so only we have access to it. and we're all editing members of this document. So like a Word document. And we all have our own, you know, sign-ins and whatnot, and we can all access this document and make notes.
Okay.
Um,
I think, well, these are great ideas, and I'll probably email you. to try
Absolutely,
that, and
I'm happy to educate anybody that.
I think we can learn on that as we move forward.
Yeah.
But I guess I think we all, number one, we agree is we gotta take care of getting an operator.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A lot of decisions that we're gonna make is really gonna revolve around where our finances are and trying to get all over our finances. And Tina's been hand-tied with trying to get that information right now. So we gotta figure out a way to crack that and get into, you know, all cops, our bank account. Dean seems to have a pretty good handle of our investment stuff, and the funds and where those are, and if we have to reach into those to help us get through some of this stuff.
I have made a call to Altops, that's our accountant, to ask them about, so there should be, each of you should have quarterly information, reconciliation from the bank, and also they paid our quarterly taxes, our employment taxes. So all that information is there, but I'm not familiar with it. And so I reached out to her to ask if we could set aside some time so that she could go over it with me, so that I could better understand what the report is, and just for my general knowledge. And also looking at down the road is it necessary to have an outside agency doing that? Is that something that we can handle internally? That would be something too as a cost savings. So-
Yeah, and I think the only reason that they, and what I've heard of it is, we had a third party doing it, and it just kept it clean, and there was no so-called shenanigans that could happen. And that may or may not be, I don't know, like, that's something that we have to grapple over,
Yeah.
for sure. Do we want somebody out there doing our accounting and keeping it straight? It's just easier, I think. I don't know.
I agree.
I don't know.
What does the law say we need?
Well, that's,
Yeah, early on, I'm not necessarily joking on this, but I kept bringing up open meeting laws and procurement processes.
well, that's
like
that's
that.
something else that needs to be really, needs to be grappled, Paul.
Yeah.
We do not have policies, procedures, or structure.
That's it, that's why I want to read the bylaws. In one of my previous jobs, I updated our bylaws for our community, and, yeah.
And I don't know what we can do, or if we can legally, or how we can legally change the bylaws that are there. And maybe they're robust enough that we don't have to. I would think that what they set up here probably covers just about anything.
Theoretically, bylaws should be a living, breathing document that can be changed.
Sure.
In some cases by board action, in other cases by community action.
Okay.
And it's just a matter of finding out which law or which rules fall into which ones.
Okay.
So
So we need to do some homework.
I think we're all willing to help, right? Yeah.
Wow. Well, that's good. Because it's a burden, for sure.
There's going to be a lot of need, you said, for, you know, committees
Yeah.
to do, but, and I think that's all good. I mean, committees and any meeting, whatever, but as I sit here, my concern is for the immediate need. And then form the committees as we're going forward. I mean, there's a lot going on tonight.
Well, I think
And
first,
there's a fire, and, you know,
we gotta figure out how to put it out. So
yeah.
the number one thing is we have to get in compliance with the MPC, and we have to get our sewer system in line. Number two, we gotta know where our budget is. We gotta know how much money we can spend.
Well, who's on the bank account?
Well,
Who's
Dean,
that?
So Dean is a signer on the bank account.
Yeah, so he can get that info, can he?
I don't think that he has access though online, that's the problem is.
Oh.
So it was when he had it
Okay,
before.
go.
He can, but, so I have this here, I've been dealing with the bank of trying to get myself added on so that I can sign checks and get online access, so that I could print a bank statement prior to each meeting. I've gotten one around, because like I'll bring something there and they'll say, well, the signature's not on the page where it says that you're taking this position. Like, okay, so then I had everybody sign at a meeting, brought it in, And they said, well, then the people that are signers in the account need to come in and sign a new signature card authorizing you to be added. I'm like, okay, but then it's Wendy's on there. And I said, well, Wendy's not here anymore. They said, well, then you have to produce something that says that Wendy's not.
Oh, yeah.
I'm like,
What bank is this with?
it's Unity Bank. So I mean,
Okay,
they're
maybe
all down.
we ought to go shopping banks.
Well, I think that,
Well, we had to go.
it's,
through
I'm
that
assuming it's gonna be the same, it's
Yeah.
just everywhere.
You know.
But, so I typed up on our letterhead,
Kinda want
something for each board member to sign, saying that this letter hereby removes Wendy Cook from the accounts at Unity Bank under Shorewood Sanitary District due to ending her employment with the district effective 2/1. Her position has been filled by Tina Heidelberger. So,
Can you attach meeting minutes?
I'm gonna attach, but I have it for each person to sign off on this. I'm asking that each board member sign it tonight. I'll have to bring it to Dean, because he's not here tonight because of his wife, because I have to have him sign checks anyways. So anything tonight that needs to be a check signed or bill paid or for board members being paid, I need to bring that to him. So I'll have him sign that and I'll drop it off. But, so I'm gonna pass that around.
Have you signed the top of it as acting chair?
I didn't have any positions listed on there of what they were. It just says board members. I was very generic with it.
Okay.
Was the check signing and or beforehand and now it's and, just and, or?
It's,
There should be two signatures on every check.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
and
that way,
it's not that
Ours
way
is
right
and
now.
or.
Yeah,
I'm
it's
gonna-
not that way right now.
ours were always and it was, as a secretary treasurer, I couldn't sign my own payroll check or any reimbursement check coming back to me. The president and vice president would do it. And the same was true with the president's pay. Me and the vice president would sign his.
So the need for.
Yeah, that way I can say, why in the heck are we paying you $486.22?
And that's, I guess my question is, in these meeting minutes that I'll be typing up now, is it in our best interest to add another signer? Because right now Dean is signing his own checks. In the past, Wendy was signing her own checks. So do we add you, Rich, as the chairperson?
Yeah.
Or the chairman of the board as a signer? Because then there are 3 people that have access to that. And there's obviously checks and balances that we have in place there's statements, we all have online access. You can see when any transaction is made. But I think that as long as we're doing this now and the new signature card has to be signed, instead of doing something a month from now, I would recommend that we
Okay.
add a 3rd person.
Instead of going through it all over again.
So if someone could maybe make a motion for that.
I make a motion that we add this to the signing.
Second.
Okay.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Matt?
Always full of donuts. He's probably gonna throw up soon.
So we paid our previous servicer to provide this data to us, correct?
When you say service, or are we talking about what data?
Previous operator.
Operator. As far as like the data that has been promised to residents at our last meeting and that we've been asking for while the previous person was in office, that he hasn't provided to us. How do we?
I have the data now, he did provide me with some
He did.
information, right? And basically what he provided was, the flow information.
Okay.
I don't know, basically, that was set up, the way that I understand it was set up that way to make his job easier. So he could monitor the system remotely and not necessarily within our jurisdiction. If you understand what I'm saying.
So he lived in Florida, or he would go to Florida in the winter.
Right.
So he could monitor those flow rates.
And
From
justify
another
us
state.
paying him for acting as the operator when he was in Florida.
Even though he wasn't really doing anything.
Yeah.
I'm black and white. He
Yeah.
wasn't doing anything.
Well,
You're paying for the license.
we're paying for a license,
Yeah.
plus we were paying for a service. but we could never understand how the pay differential was there. And
Okay.
what portion of his fee was just for the license,
Okay,
and what portion of the fee was for him to actually do physically things as the operator,
okay,
and what portion of it was he was getting paid as chairman of the board for doing extra duties.
okay.
Okay? We all know what we were receiving as board members, but it was never really broken down, and we've asked for that over and over and over again, but never received it. So really, we don't know how that pay structure was set up.
Yeah.
And again, it's a past thing. We have the opportunity to basically recreate all that stuff in a more comprehensive way and open, so we're all on the same page. Because right now, we don't have that information.
Yeah.
Now, I'll go to Denny and say, turn over everything that you have, and we're gonna have to pick through regardless. And, do we need to? Should we? I don't know. I suppose there's gonna be a certain amount of stuff that we're gonna have to get there. Because he still had any bills, and in the past, that's how it was. We come to a meeting and there'd be a handful of bills. Because they would come to his house, and that's not a proper way to do it. They really should go to the fuel box, and then it should be paid. So there was a lot of things that basically developed, and he was a one-man show, basically, what happened. And any of the board members really worked as puppets, I think. I mean, and I'm not gonna say that. Basically, if we were puppets that, voting yes, no from his information.
There were a lot of things that he did that we weren't aware of. It basically evolved into like the mayor of Shorewood.
That's exactly what it is. And
Yeah.
I'm not gonna blame the past operator, chairman for that. That's just what it morphed into.
Yeah, it evolved.
Involved in that over the years. We've heard that it's basically his baby, he was dealing with it. And it can't operate that way anymore. I mean, this is the time for the change. He stepped back. We have to redevelop this government and comply now.
So our energies need to be focused on that, not
Yeah,
Right, exactly.
what
What happened in the
should
past.
or could.
Right, exactly. It doesn't do us no good whatsoever.
And it should be noted, you said that Bill could be our operator. That's right now, he had every opportunity to go to the MPCA and fill out all this paperwork.
Exactly. So if Bill could be one of our choices.
Yeah.
He could be that choice. We didn't get the opportunity to say, Bill, do you want to take this on? But if you want to do this, you have to help us work through this paperwork as operator to get us in compliance. And by him walking up out of here, I don't think he wanted anything to do with that. That's just my impression.
I think he was shell shocked. I don't.
Well, that tells me
Yeah.
he doesn't really understand, and I don't think Danny understands
I don't
everything
understand.
that has to happen because he relied on Tim Corby to help direct him through the whole thing, which we may need to turn to also. Or we rely on this contractor hopefully telling us that these are the steps that you have to do to comply.
Can I ask a question?
Sure, absolutely.
Is the board required to do an RFP for this contractor?
I would say, and typically we try to develop a request for proposal, but the problem with that is we could really never come up with a job description for it. And we tried to get that over and over from Denny, what do you do? And it would come to us in fragments. So we really don't know as a board what we need to do to keep our sewer system going. All we can do is react right now, okay? And I think what our past operator was doing with Bill as an apprentice is kind of showing him that. And maybe, directing that and making us that the easy handoff at that point in time. But I think collectively we came up with, we don't know if that necessarily, we didn't have the time to investigate this. As of the beginning of the year, Denny said he's not going anywhere to me, okay? When he got back I'm sorry, Denny, it's gonna be real hard. Past operator came back, he said, no, I'll be around at least until this expansion is done. So at that point, I had no reason to believe that this was gonna happen, okay? We had a meeting 2 months ago, everything was still going that way. He came up to us and said, I gotta get my license up to date, so every indication was still staying at that point. The next meeting came up and said, I'm stepping away from being the chairman of the board, which is fine, But we knew we needed an operator, and we were still tied to the past operator. Well, basically at that point, we get an email saying, if I want to start collecting my retirement, I have to totally disconnect myself from everything that is connected with Shorewood Sanitary District. And I know from information of other people that have para, before they can start collecting it, they have to separate themselves from what they're being paid from. So with that information, and he basically stepped back from everything, and he handed this to us. And I don't think he's quite aware of what he handed to us and not being in compliance. I think he assumed that we probably could have still operated underneath his license as we bridge this gap to find somebody and try to go out and ask for an RFP and try to get some other people. And I think maybe we can do that. And if we reach out to this contractor to comply with us, we don't sign a 3-year contract. You know, we have the opportunity to look out, or we have the opportunity to ask. You know, we don't necessarily have to ask HR Green. There's other engineers out there, but he does know our system and he knows it well. And he does come recommended from the NPCA because this is what he does. So he is highly regarded on that case, but he's not cheap, let's just put it that way. So what I've learned in the past with him is we would almost have to ask for specific contracts so we can control what he's doing. Because all of a sudden we would just get bills and it'd be just coded something general. And we could never understand what it was tied to. And quite frankly, I think the past operator may have had conversations for them. But, you know, anytime that we had to comply and put information in, some of this information that we have to comply, I think the past operator turned it over to HR Green and let them fill it out, and we would get a bill for that. And that's fine, but we needed to know and understand that. And we would just accept that that was part of the cost of operation. We never really dug into it. I think there's more cost-effective ways to do that. And this was brought up in the past year is if we hire a contractor, that would be their responsibility, and we would watch what they're doing, and they would tell us what they're doing, and we pay them a fee for that. And if that fee comes in, you know, depending on where it is, it may come in low, or it may come up a little bit higher.
But we don't have any knowledge of how the system works. They could be sending us a bill to,
Well-
you know, rebuilding the warp drive capacitors.
Right,
And
so
we'd be
all-
going, oh, okay, yeah, they look brand new.
Well, so that's exactly,
Yeah, but that's what's happening with the past.
and that's what's happening right now. We don't know. I mean, we need to educate ourselves to a basic spot. And if we hire a professional, we would hope that we are getting, and we should typically vet that out with trying to get 3 different types of bids if we decide to contract it out, which I think now, which is happening right now, we have more control when we sign a contract with somebody, and we don't, in my eyes, we don't have to pay workman's comp, we don't have to pay para, we don't have to pay insurances, you know, different insurances. They have to provide us with a certificate of insurance.
Licensing fees.
And license, and they cover all that.
But if a pump fails and then they just did a PM on it,
We can lean back on.
you know,
You know, the past operator would basically call a contractor out anyways. You know, basically he would say that light would go off, and the first thing he would do is call, when the light goes off, I'm just finding out how that works, and Quality Flow set that up as a monitoring system, which I don't think is a bad thing. But when there was a problem, the light would go off, and Tim Courtney would get a call, Denny would get a call, and Quality Flow would get a call. So that they know that there is something, and we pay a fee for that. There is something else that we have to dig in to see if we might continue to do that. So there's something else out there that I know that we see a fee for. And that would be the monitoring system, and I think that's set up for Quality Flow.
And the contractor could take on that responsibility.
Exactly. What he would do, the way that he explained it to me is, the systems that they take care of up in Cross Lake and Bracadema is a lot more complex than ours. Basically, around Cross Lake, there's 17 lift stations. We have 2. They lift all their sewage and they pump it to the city of Pine City. And then they pay Pine City to take that sewage. And Bracadema is the same way. Ours is a little bit different because we're independent. We have 2 pumps that takes everything and sends it to a pond. So our permit would be different because we basically have to, you know, we have to discharge our stuff after it goes from one pond to another pond, and then we discharge. Now, according to this and the way that I read this, the only time that we give information to the MPCA is whenever we do a discharge. With Denny, or with past operator, we're doing with that information that he got, understanding how much water is flow, he was calculating when he had to do a discharge by understanding how much water was going into the pumping system, which works. That's how it was set up. And then that's how he would decide when it had to be discharged. So this data that we've been asking for and all that data that he gets is just for him. It is not reported to the MPCA. That is not part of their compliance that I can read here. That's the basic stuff that I looked into. So to comply, there's really only times that we report to the MPCA is, and that's when we do our testing of the water, is when we do discharge. And they call them DMRs. It's discharge monitoring report, basically is what it is. So we'll have to reach out to the compliance officer and find out what we have to do. But the short of it is we have to make a quick decision on getting somebody to bridge the gap. And right now, I think that is that contractor out of Pine City. And basically we'll ask him for a proposal for, the minimum of what they'll do it for. Is it a year contract, 6-month contract? I think they probably wouldn't do it for anything less than 1 year. And that would be, before we make that decision, of course, we have to see that and we'll have to meet to agree to that to move forward. And hopefully we can get that information and meet here in the near future and we understand briefly where our monthly intake is and where our money and our budget is really right now.
Do we have the information from our previous guy to make these decisions, wisely?
Well, I can go and ask him for everything that he has, but we'll have to sift through it.
Okay.
What can we expect for, bills coming our way? What have we been on the hook for the past? I don't know if there's another way that we can really,
And we should be able to take a look at your checkbook.
We
the checkbook, or we can go to LCOP, and that's why you want to sit down and try to figure that out.
Because there are things that are paid, all costs have access to our account.
They pay things for us.
Yep, so, and like East Central Energy, that comes out automatically. But Altops are paying our 941s and like our quarterly taxes,
Mhm.
they're paying that. So we need to get a better grasp on what our costs are, because like in the past, the way it was explained to me was, the monthly bills or the monthly money that's coming in is $5,035 for, sewer and $2,035, or $2,027 for road fees, whatever it is. So essentially you have just under $8,000, a month that should be coming in. But we aren't getting that every month because people are not paying their bills every month. And I know that so like, let's say if you don't pay your bill all year long, which happens, we have quite a few residents that aren't doing that. But all of a sudden November comes, if you haven't paid your bill in full, that's gonna get assessed on your taxes. And how is that money coming back to us? I don't know. I haven't been doing this long enough to know that. So those are the things that I need to figure out more of, like, I haven't, when Wendy left, it was more of our time, my training was spent trying to get QuickBooks that she had on her system and had taken the files and moved to mine, and it wasn't compatible because hers was old. And so things like doing those assessments in November, I have no idea who I'm supposed to talk to. Like, there's a lot of questions that I have still that I need to address. So yeah, we need to figure out, when we talk about a budget, I don't think that there is a budget. I don't think that we've ever approved a budget as a board of this is what our projected income is, this is what our projected spending is, salaries, there's been nothing like that. And that's what I'm used to dealing with in my professional job. That's what, I would deal with, but I've never seen anything like that here.
No budgets have ever been created on a yearly basis.
Correct.
At all. And
Wendy didn't.
No, Wendy wouldn't have done that because she was the secretary. So that would have been, it would have been the board that should have been creating that, the previous chairman and the board.
The treasurer probably should have been helping with that.
The treasurer.
Yeah, exactly. And so there's nothing that's been done with that in the past. So I think that, we have this long list of things that we need to address, and that's one of them, of creating a budget going forward and looking at what we're gonna spend, because we would just, bills would come in and we would just pay them.
Yeah.
And that's not necessarily the best way to do it.
It's not the way to operate, no.
Yeah.
Well, a perfect example is last year when it came up to the roads, we had to dip into that dividend cash fund to pay him off because we didn't have the funds. Recovering from all the expenses from that expansion that happened 2 years ago. I think nothing's gone out for that in the last 2 years, so we can kind of see where we're at. Even if our budgets that we create are wrong, we can really, I think we can put a budget together fairly simple by what we know is coming in and what we have and how we can spend it.
It's a guide, yeah.
Right, and then we can adjust one way or the other. But we don't have that working guide yet, and we have to develop that, we have to develop it quick. So again, we have to get our license and compliance under, and we have to get our finance under control before we start deciding to spend more money on fixing the sewer system, fixing the roads, fixing all that stuff. And all those things do need attention real quick.
But we also need to fill your position as well.
Right, so that's
I would
another.
say there's already enough board members, if I remember from the bylaws.
Well, that'd be something that we have to sit down with.
I think,
How many board members are there?
I thought there was 4 and then the chair.
Oh, yeah, there's plenty, according to the names that were on the last minutes anyways, yeah.
But that's just what I remember. It's been a while since I looked.
I just thought since, do we need that position? I don't know. You could see that we were really handicapped in the wintertime. That's a problem with people that leave. We were down to 3 people at any particular meeting in the wintertime, and if one of them's gone, we can't do any business. So I think that's why they looked for 5 people to come in.
I could be gone in the winter times.
Right, exactly. So I think maybe that's why we covered our tails on that particular day. And that's fine and that's okay. But-
Well, one thing to consider too is the Zoom meetings, at least those people
Yeah.
can still be here.
Right.
If you had the access.
Well, I think that's something that, as we develop this website, that we keep on talking about, that we can do, and he spent a lot of time on it. And quite frankly, people are looking for that information. Some people know that it's coming out, but I think we really need to focus on some other
Are
stuff.
you willing to do Zoom meetings when you're?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, because then I think, let's the 5 of us take this on. Let's just do this.
And then if we have to
We're all
decide,
filled in and we don't have time.
right,
to wait for something.
basically something that'll come in blind anyways.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
All right, so I think that, like, I guess we'll make a motion not to fill the vacancy that I left, taking on.
Well, it would
chair.
still be Dean, right? So you.
Yeah, Dean is-
6.
Yeah.
1, 2, 3.
Like,
But I'm not a board member technically.
Oh, you're not, sorry. Oh,
Yeah.
I was calling you. Okay.
Yep.
But again, that's based on until, let's say I get a chance to start reviewing some of our bylaws,
We can change that.
determining what
Yeah.
we need to be doing, because again, I have this thing about open meeting laws and violating state laws, and I don't want to go to jail with you.
Well,
So Rich made a motion, we need someone to second that, to not fill that position. Sorry, I
Second.
don't wanna, okay, thank you.
and we'll say for the time being or for the interim.
Okay.
Do we have the financial data to get on our feet? Is it available to us? Do we have it?
Not yet.
Not yet.
We don't. No, we need it from our previous operator.
No,
First, or what do we need it from? Bank?
So we need to talk to Altops, that's
Okay.
our accounting services, to get a
Okay.
better handle on what are they doing for us, what access do they have, what bills are being paid,
Okay.
so that we can get an idea of, so when we're creating a budget, so we can say, okay, here's our estimated employer taxes, but we're not going to be paying out para anymore. We're not going to be paying out workman's comp anymore. So there's gonna be some cost savings there
Reduction,
essentially.
yeah, right.
But looking at, with the, the new website, so there's some costs there. With postage and whatever else, that's, all of those line items need to be figured into this budget, and we've never done that before. So I mean, we're literally gonna start from scratch of, in my opinion, taking a budget and saying, okay, everything from postage to our, license fees, Tim Corby, but looking at what we've spent in the past and going back and using that information to create a budget going forward.
Perfect.
We're gonna miss some things.
Oh, yeah.
There'll be some surprises coming at us that we'll have to react to, but if we can get the bulk of them, I think we're gonna be better off.
Okay.
And I think we can use, let's ask for forgiveness on some things because of the changes. I'm sure we're gonna have that latitude on some things.
As long as the cops don't.
Right. I think we're gonna have a little latitude. I guess, on this particular issue, I don't know, do we move forward on the rest of the agenda and try to work through it a little bit?
I think that one thing we do need to do is approve the minutes, and I know that there were some changes that we discussed that need to be made, some
Okay.
updates.
So why don't you let's read the minutes from the previous meeting and then we'll move from there.
All right, so I'm just gonna start with new business. So we didn't have any updates last month on our investment fund. The website update, Matt presented two different options for a district. The current platform we're using has the option to accept electronic payments and messaging, but the other option would be only to post and display information without any kind of interaction. Matt agreed to take this position of webmaster for these sites. One thing that I do need to add on there is that we had approved the cost of that, because I do have the bills now.
Okay.
So I don't know if you want me to edit that, or if you just want me to put it in our bills that we're presenting this month.
Well, I think you should edit that and put the amounts in there.
Okay.
And then let me ask you this, we have not committed to any electronic payments yet. We have not made that move.
No, we have not.
Okay, so right now, we're not making any changes, because that'll be some of the questions on, we've not moved forward, that's something for future discussion. Right now, this website is gonna be set up, and I think we should get it out even if it's under construction, just as an informational type website.
Yep.
Okay.
Speed bumps, we had the question of adding speed bumps to help control speed. We talked about how there was speed bumps in the past, but they were removed due to plowing issues. And discussed a campaign of reminding residents about the posted speed limits and request additional patrols from the county were suggested also. Denny verified that the League of Minnesota Cities dividend check was received on 12/7/21 for $727. That was an outstanding item that I had from previous minutes, that we would be getting this dividend check from the League of Minnesota Cities, and I have not seen it come through, but it came in prior to me taking over in February, so. Shorewood Park maintenance, we had a lot of discussion. We decided to form a park committee. That was one of the things that was talked about to address some of the issues that we're seeing with the fire pit, maintaining parks, and who's responsible for these tasks. There was much discussion on the current state of the burn pile in the upper circle of Shorewood. This burn pile is for Shorewood residents only, but there's been dumping from local businesses and outside residents. Another issue is that we continue to have grass clippings dumped in the burn pile, which is prohibited and clearly posted on the burn pile. We discussed adding additional signage for this area. The area needs to be cleaned up as it has gotten too large, so ideas were discussed of how to clean up this area and what the cost would be were discussed. It was agreed that this needs to be addressed outside of the regular Shorewood meeting and addressed by the park committee. Suggested members for the park committee were Joe Heidelberger, Austin Shannon, Matt Anderson, Sue Means, and Jeff Colbert. Funding expansion updates, there was no decisions made, continues to be a topic of discussion. DNR update, same thing, we continue to be in the running for state funding. Road committee, Premier Asphalt, provided a bid of $24,500. We would see a savings of $5,000 by confirming the bid now versus later. Paul inquired about the process for going out for bids for services provided. Question was raised of our obligation when securing bids for services. For example, do we need to use the same system that the state would for requesting an RFP? Paul was going to reach out to the League of Minnesota Cities for more information. So the correction needs to be made that we agreed to 16,000, was it?
Okay, so the bid came across as 16.8 just for the patching and the road repairs, with an additional adder on there for $8,000 to seal coat the main drive coming in.
Okay.
And what we decided to approve for him to buy was the 16.8. If we did that, it would stay at 16.8, and if we didn't, it would have gone up by $5,000, and then it would have been whatever the difference was.
Okay.
So we committed to him to repair the roads for 16.8, and we did not accept the seal coating. We'll address that at a later time.
Okay. The shed pump house, we'll continue working on it at the next meeting. As I discussed, I was down there. We already talked about that earlier, that we need to find out where some of the items have went and get those back. Shorewood land, discussed the 2 acres of land collectively owned by the residents of Shorewood. Per D. Wood, he's not renting off the land this year, so there's no rent being collected at this time. Now, are you familiar with that, Michelle and Mike? So
No, we just read it, yeah.
So there's land that is up
The southwest corner is supposed
Yeah.
to be Sherwood's,
correct.
2 acres of it.
Big sign
Oh, that's great.
That's all.
I never knew that,
Yep. So Denny Wood owns that, except for the 2 acres that are owned by Shorewood. And in the past, it was being planted, and the question was raised of, where's that rent money going? If it's being collected, how is it getting back to the Shorewood residents? Because it shouldn't be farmed. And I will add to that,
but if Denny owns it, we don't.
He doesn't.
no,
He owns the big part.
he owns part of it.
He was farming the
He's,
2
he's
acres.
collecting rent for it. So the question was raised, he said at the last meeting that it was not gonna be planted this year, but indeed it was planted this year. So we do need to add that back to our agenda because
What's in there?
Yeah.
Looks like weeds to me.
it's corn, correct?
I don't know, I can't tell you.
There is corn, that's what they.
So it was planted and sprayed.
Is it corn
I see
that's
that. It's
growing,
corn.
or is it corn that's
I
just
see
left
rows,
over?
but I can't tell if it's bean or corn, so
Yeah.
something's coming.
Oh.
So we need to address that with him also. Manhole repair, where am I here? Yeah. Manhole repair, there's a manhole that needs to be repaired. Denny had a quote from it from last year, but it had not been completed. He was gonna follow up with the contractor to see if the bid was still good. He was gonna check and follow up with it next month. There was a culvert on Lakeview Drive that there was a concern of water collecting in the yard with rain at the residence of Marvin and Jean Johnson. The road committee was gonna review it and then provide an update at the next meeting. Ponds, we talked about how there were some tours given to residents and board members. If anyone's interested in the future, they can always request to have a tour of the ponds. Dennis Wood stepped down from his position as wastewater operator for the district effective 6/30. Bill Wood was present at the meeting and provided a resume for review to take over the position. He's been an apprentice to Dennis Wood. It was discussed that we need to make this position temporary until we can decide as a board how we want to move forward. The motion was made to hire Bill Wood effective 7/1 for 6 months, but that needs to be corrected to 3 months is what we'd agreed upon.
Correct.
As our temporary wastewater operator by Ann Anderson, seconded by Dean, and Paul did abstain from that vote. Wastewater operator discussions were made about expectations going forward of the position, including monthly operator reports. Also discussed the option of hiring this position as an independent contractor. This would avoid having to pay out Herrick for this position, which would result in savings to the district. We adjourned our meeting at 9:15. Any other corrections, questions?
All right, so before we approve the minutes from the previous meeting, you're gonna change the amounts for the road
Correct.
committees,
Yep.
okay? Or for the road repairs.
My corrections are changing it to 16,800
Yep.
for patches and repairs, and an additional 8,000 was presented for seal coating the drive, but we declined that at this time.
Right.
And then I'm adding for the website update, that we approved the charges that Matt had presented at the last meeting, and I'll add those fees of $204 and $48.96. And then the other correction was to change the 6-month temporary position to a 3-month temporary position. So those are the 3 corrections I have for.
How did it get changed from 6 to 3? Was it just a typo or
It
something?
was a type, I misunderstood.
Oh, okay.
There was a discussion of 6
lot of-
months, and then we collectively came up with, let's just make it 3 months.
So we do have an operator then, if that's stated in the minutes, so are we not, we are though in compliance?
So
His
the-
license expired.
The gentleman that left was that person,
Right,
and he didn't go through the motions of becoming that operator, so.
he did.
No, so we
didn't know about it.
He didn't
didn't know
know
about it. or-
He had no clue what had to happen.
The fact is that it didn't happen.
Again, I think the past operator didn't know that we would not be in compliance with what we agreed upon.
Yeah.
And we found that out by seeking the information from the MPCA.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but wasn't Bill under the impression that he'd be working under Denny's license?
That was the impression that I had.
Okay.
Okay, so that's why, it was always that he would still work under the apprenticeship portion of it with Danny. That was the assumption that I had. Now, maybe I'm wrong. Now, you're shaking your head no, that we would have just automatically gave that position to Bill.
Bill is licensed by the state. He's got
He's got his Class D license, right?
Bill does wastewater training.
Right.
At those conventions or those
Sure.
meetings that Denny goes to, Bill gives trainings, whether it be on water flows, the chemical compositions, or confined spaces.
I guess my question, if he's that knowledgeable, why would he have not known that we would have had to go through this process?
Good question.
Because he's learning it also.
Okay,
Yeah.
so
But you just said he's teaching.
he teaches certain aspects of it, but that would have been my question too.
Yeah.
I would think that somebody would
And
have.
I'll ask him. I'll ask him.
It's kind of null and void at this particular
Yeah.
point in time. And again, all I could go off was the information that I seen real quick and what they sent me, and I'll show you that information. But according to the compliance letter and the information that if we have to make any changes to comply, we have to go through this process
Yeah.
of entering all this stuff and applying for that.
When did you find out about
Today at 4:00.
it? Okay.
I called yesterday,
Okay.
and then they didn't get back to me until today. And again, the reason I called is because Denny called me over to give me his letter of resignation. And that's kind of when I, pieced it together that he is not going to be the operator either.
Yeah.
That was the actual portion. So really, at the last meeting, he was stepping down as chairman of the board. But in my eyes, he was still the operator for the next 3 months. That was where that I got it. So this really all came to effect as of the 30th, when he wanted to clear and step away from everything.
Does there need to be a motion made that the Bill Wood temporary position is now null and void? So
Well-
that's documented in minutes then?
Well, I think,
Or did we already do that? I guess.
we haven't done that, but I think,
Kind of get lost.
right. So I don't know, that's a good question. Now, we almost have to get unapproved minutes out of what happened today.
Right, and that would be in those, right?
Right.
Okay.
So, I mean,
That would just be added to this meeting.
Right.
well, I think we gotta get the information out to the people what's happened, because they don't know. Right now, the only way that they're gonna find out is by going to the board on the pump house and reading the minutes.
So I need a motion to approve the current minutes with the corrections.
Okay?
Want to go back to that, sorry. So I'm-
First,
Okay,
I'll second.
So approved.
All right.
and then, as Michelle had said, we need to make a motion to make the offer to Bill null at this point.
first,
I make a motion to rescind the offer to Bill to work as a temporary wastewater operator based on his reaction.
Okay.
first.
I'll second.
Okay,
All right.
okay.
And I just
Aye.
need,
And Paul's abstaining, yep. All right.
Just noting that, and I just want to interact here a little bit. I wish you would have stayed and discussed. That would have made me feel more comfortable with him being capable of making, I don't know how to say it, but
Well-
it didn't leave me with a very good,
Well, like, I don't think we pulled the rug out from underneath him.
yeah, I was just
I think
surprised.
that, at the time of this meeting, in my mind, when I came here, we had two options. Bill was still one of the options,
Yeah,
and this contractor that I reached out to cover our tails once I found out that we weren't compliant was another option. So regardless, my questions to Bill would have been, can you help us fill out this paperwork? I talked to the previous operator at that time, and we really did have a time to sit down with Mr. Bill Wood to talk about what our expectations would be and what his expectations would be for us. So we really never had the opportunity. We never did, I was never pulling the rug out from him at all when I started this whole conversation. But by him getting up and walking away, that's a kind of an indication to me that he doesn't want to have anything to do with it. And that's where I'm gonna take it right now. Because professionally, is that how he's gonna run, is that how he's gonna act when he goes into a bar?
That would be mine.
So we have no other way but to assume that from what the reaction was. So I think at this point, that option has walked over.
Yeah.
One thing I want to go back to on the agenda was the banking access, which we did address by signing that. But also there is a form that needs to be signed for an agreement and authorization for access to employer reporting and information for para. So in order for me to have access online and fill out the report online, right now it's been a manual process, that's all we've done in the past. So I would need you to sign off on this, Rich, because you are now the chairman of the board.
Okay.
I can't do anything besides, I can just do the monthly reporting, which right now, there is no payment that'll be going to para.
Okay, so when you said that in, would you have to send in the minutes?
No.
Okay.
So this is just to simply access, right now it's a paper form, so when I would write out a payroll check to Dennis, it would have his wages and then his para and then what we were matching as a district. And then I would write a check to para for that.
Okay.
So I would still write a check manually, but the reporting would be done online. So, and then also this is listing me, they still had Wendy as the person on the account. So I needed to be changed to the person that's assigned as a secretary.
Okay.
So,
I need to sign it.
okay, perfect. And that down again. Can I move on to presentation of bills? Are you okay with that?
I'm okay with that, and when you're done with the ones that you have, I have a couple for you.
Okay, perfect. So first bill, East Central Energy, we have for $77. This is an automatic payment that comes out of our account, but we still need to have an approval on it. So,
First,
okay,
Second. You want to just do them all and then get one
Yep,
for all of
perfect.
them? Or?
Yeah.
Okay.
I also have ink reimbursement for me for printing statements, printing minutes, all of that, for a cost of $134.98. There's a receipt here. There's a line next to those. Envelopes, I need to order envelopes for mailing out statements. These are pre-stamped, or not pre-stamped, but pre-printed with the postage on them. The cost is $354.95. That is for 500 envelopes. So I would need approval to do that as well. Rasmussen Services, this is the service that mows our ponds. I will say when I'm looking back at past bills, they've not increased their price, but we're paying considerably more than what we were in the past. So this current bill is for $877.38. They had a cost for Roundup, which I'm assuming the charge for that is because the cost of Roundup has gone up so much.
Okay.
And then they also are charging for spraying the ponds and mowing the pond driveway. So that's a separate fee to have that done. So if you guys want to look at that. I also have a receipt, 2 receipts here from Matt. One is for Wix.com, the other is for GoDaddy. The Wix.com invoice is for $204, and that was our membership for a 2-year membership. And this is for the public, or this is for the private? Public, okay. And then an invoice for $48.96 for domain protection and registration is a .org. And that one, does it say how long?
2 years.
2 years, okay, so both of them are for 2 years, one for $48.96, one for $204.
And that was all your bills?
That was all the bills that I had.
Okay, so Past Operated handed me a notification, so somebody's gonna have to dig into this. This is second payment notice for LMCIT workers' compensation coverage. Let me just sign these and get this away from me. Concentrate on one thing at a time. So there's a past bill due out there to the League of Cities for our workmen's comp. So somebody's gotta look into it. He didn't hand me the bill, but we gotta contact this person to see how much this is.
What was the amount?
It doesn't say, this is all he handed me.
Okay.
So there's a past due, basically we have forgiveness until 7/25 before they give us any kind of, penalties towards that, according to that email. So I don't think that's an approval of a bill, but it's an action item that has to be taken care of.
So we just got a check, no, that was a check a year ago.
We got a dividend check.
Yep. So we had paid, I had recently paid two months ago. It wasn't on this, I can look and I can let the board know, but, it was a $1,600 League of Minnesota's fees. In Tuesday, May 10th, we approved it, for insurance and membership of $1,610 was made to the League of Minnesota Cities. That was on May 10th, so that would have been received by then.
Okay, so then somebody has to, it basically says if you give us the check number,
Yep,
then that would probably clear that up.
yep, I can take care of that.
Okay. The other thing that I have here is, this is actually for our permit. Minnesota Pollution Control Agency, and it's water permit annual fee of $379. And he received this invoice 4/5. So he received this back in April.
Was that coming to his address or the PO address?
It is actually to his address.
Yeah, with
So
all
I
of
need to
these,
update that.
any checks that you're sending, I'll put a note in with them that,
Yeah.
update the address.
So when we update the information with the MPCA, that's one of the questions it asks, you know, who's the chairman, who's the operator, you know, and I think you kind of distinguish, you know, where the bills are gonna be going to. I think that's something that we'll have to figure out.
So what
Do you need this?
I always thought here, Rich, is how did Denny get that bill? Does Denny have a key to the PO box? Oh, no, you said it went to his address.
Bills are going right to his house.
Because there are bills that we are getting from quality control and lab testing that Denny's bringing to these meetings and she's not getting out of the PO box.
Okay, and we don't know if they're going to the PO box. At this point, that's something else that we have to find out. So that's one of the things that we have to dig into, is all bills should be going to the PO box, right? They should not be going, I don't want them coming to my house. I don't think Tina wants them going to her house.
No, and the one that we looked at for Minnesota Valley Testing, or it was Quality Flow, one of the two of them had our PO box address, but the shipping address though was a Shorewood Circle address, which I'm assuming is Denny's.
And that would have been because those test containers are time sensitive, I believe.
Right, so and we'll have to figure that, and that's something with the operator, that we'll have to figure out how that happens as far as testing goes. We'll have to work that out. So basically, we're gonna need approval to pay for that bill also. And then the other bill that we have in front of us is the work that we agreed upon from LJJ Wastewater Maintenance. And this is the process that we started to try to figure out where the I&I is, which I think is an important process that we're gonna have to do, what we're gonna continue to do. But I put the brakes on it. I said, stop, until we can figure out where we're going. This is the same company that we'll probably reach out to hopefully, you know, contract as our operator. But he now does have a drawing of our maps. He has access to that. Okay.
Just with anyone dropping.
Okay, so basically it's electronically. So now I still don't have that floppy disk, which I hope to get from our past operator that actually has this information on. He had to get it off of a link. The other person that has this disk or information is Tim Corby. So Corby does have this, and it is a pretty good drawing, and I'd like to update this drawing in the future and put it on the wall, but I want to make it electronic and get it on the website. I also have, this guy provided me the flash drive of the scoping that they did. So we have a good flash drive that actually shows the area that he has highlighted that he has looked into. Okay. Now, what we did talk about in the past that from his bid, it was like a $25,000 bid to actually scope our whole sewer system, and then a base bid basically to jet the whole system. Now, they only have to jet the system if they can't get through it with the camera or there's a problem. Okay, so now in the square footage that he has done already, and he's stating that they have roughly 500 feet of the main line so far. He's ran into two areas that there is gravel, sand, and so on in there. And that's kind of an indication that we might have a cracked pipe. And we are going to find these things throughout this process of maintenance that has to happen. So it's a PM that we're going to have to talk about in the future. This is another opportunity for us to create a baseline in the future of where we're at with our sewer system. But the way that I discussed it is we really need to get understanding of where we are with our budgets before we move on any further. But it'll be something that they suggest highly, and we can get an idea of exactly where our sewer system runs, and it can educate us, and we can pass that information on to the people so they know what the pipes are, where the pipes are, and what we do have for a system. So the bill right now is he's scoped out roughly 500 feet. And we have a good camera indication of what that is. 95% of what he scoped out looks excellent, but what you do see is a constant flow of water, and that is an indication of I&I water. Our system should not be flowing clear water consistently like that.
How many feet? If he did 500?
He did 500 feet, and the amount for that is $825.
How much more is left to be done though? I'm sorry.
3 miles.
Oh, 3 miles.
okay.
Lots and lots.
Yeah.
So he did $825 worth, and he has a bid of $25,000.
Oh.
So that's something that I think that we're gonna have to approach, something that we're gonna have to budget. It's something that I don't think, unless we decide to pull out a dividend and go full bore on it, that's another discussion that we have. But right now, we need to make him whole and pay for the deliverables that he gave to us.
Yeah.
So we'll need approval on these ones also. So the last two is we need approval on the permit fee plus the work that LJJ did for scope. And Matt, maybe we'll get you that information of the maps of what he's done right now. And we can kind of get that on the website.
Great.
I'm gonna turn it over to Tina for now, the file away, we can kind of grab that.
You have to sign that?
Yeah, I have to sign it too. And then I have all the bills here for her, just kind of give it to her in a big file.
You're tired after you 7 weeks.
What are you making of? What are you running on?
I think this is all the bills in, and then this is on top of it is that para information. I'm gonna hand this over to you, Tina, too, as our official letter of resignation from Denny, because this is the only information that we have officially.
As far as agenda items, I'm assuming that we are going to table other items, but one thing about the meeting location, I think is something that we need to discuss tonight,
Yes.
just to make sure that that's addressed.
Okay, so why don't you go ahead and explain right now, and we keep this on the record for the minutes?
So in interest of gaining internet access for our meetings, tonight I rented a hotspot from the library, but they're odd and we're not guaranteed to have one every meeting. In fact, one was returned 5 minutes after I talked to her on the phone today, and she called me right back, and I was able to swoop it up. So in interest of having internet access and other amenities for our meetings, I called the City Hall, and they offered us the Shorewood Community Center as a possible meeting place.
You mean the Rush City Community Center?
I'm sorry, the Rush City Community Center, and they have availabilities whenever we need them. The second Tuesdays of the month. However, during elections, they have polling there, so we would have to reschedule those meetings, which I did. But I did take the liberty of just scheduling this for the rest of the year. Every second Tuesday at 7 p.m. at the community center, with the exception of August and November, and I scheduled those meetings the day after the second Tuesday. So we
Okay, so
would
they would be
second Wednesday.
Second Wednesday.
Correct. So we'd have internet access. We would just turn in the fire door key, and obtain the community center key, and it's no charge. And I think they have air conditioning and
nice.
It's
The
nice.
donuts should be waiting for you there.
Yes.
So I guess I'm looking for a motion to change our venue as per Matt.
I'd say first.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
So I believe it's August 10th, I believe would be the next meeting. It's the Wednesday after election. Second Wednesday of August, we will be meeting at the community center.
That'll be our next scheduled meeting. But pending more information, there's a possibility of a special meeting happening between now and then.
Do you want to just put a couple dates on it, or?
I
don't know a lot.
I can't until we get enough information, but again, I will keep you guys all apprised on all the information that I have.
Okay.
I will send out the informational emails that I have right now that came from the MPCA. Them are my action items for you guys right now. To move forward, and the other action item that I will do is I will reach out to Tim Corby and try to get some free advice out of him and see what our next steps are. And if he is gonna help us move on to the next step, I'll ask for a distinct amount of money of what that would cost, and we can make that decision on if we want to use him or use a combination of him plus the new operator, which would be our options. So I think we have 3 options there. So then we're, I guess, to do agenda items that are action items that have to happen. I think the next action item is that we really need to grapple with is somebody needs to follow up with the League of Cities, where we should have insurance or any kind of free legal advice, because we do pay money to them for that kind of stuff.
The previous operator gave me information on that, so I can follow up on that. So what are our rights, responsibilities, options for legal advice?
Right.
Did he have a contact that he had down there, Paul, or
Pardon me?
does he have a contact that he?
Yeah, he gave it to me. I don't think I brought it with.
Okay, can you, as your action item, can you go ahead and reach out to that person, but send out in an email who you're reaching out with?
Yeah.
So we all know who that person is. For some reason, if you run into a snag, we have that same name. And
I'll have a brief synopsis of the questions that I was going to ask, and I'll have those listed before I call them.
Okay.
And I'll probably give you a call or a text
Okay.
and say, this is what I'm thinking about asking, and you got anything to add or subtract or whatever.
Why don't you do that via email?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
let's keep that going via email and copy everybody here.
Yeah.
So you can kind of see them discussions, and if anybody else has done anything outside of what you're gonna do,
Yeah.
they can add those comments.
Yeah.
But I think we will task you with that.
And we don't want to muddy the water with me calling in, and you calling in, and you calling in, and yeah.
So what I'm going to do with the email that you send out, I'm going to start a document
Okay.
for this topic only, and I'm going to label the document, and then I'm going to share the document with the 5 of us, 6 of us, including Dean. And then we, instead of sifting through emails and having open emails and is that the email, and piecing it all together in our minds, we're going to have all the information chronologically in this document.
Okay.
So we can just follow along,
Okay.
just like a diary.
Okay,
So when I send the email out to Joe Smith at the League of Cities,
Yep.
and he replies, does that email, do I just copy that email to that document?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
Okay.
So I'll make a document called the League of Cities, we'll just call it the League of Cities for right now, until we get to the
Yeah.
meetings, we'll just call it the League of Cities, and it'll be a document that we shared with everybody. And then when you send it out, put that in there, and when you receive it, put that in there. And, any of us have any League of Cities information, you just add it chronologically to the
Yeah.
document. And I think that's just gonna be a much easier way for us to be able to stay on top of things together.
Yeah.
okay, then my action items would be, continue conversation with the MCPA. I will share that email that I already have,
Perfect.
and then reaching out to Tim Corby.
Okay.
And then I've already reached out to that contractor. I'm waiting for his response on how much his budget would be to be our operator. And once I have that information, I'll share it, and then we'll decide if we have to put on a special meeting via email that way.
Okay, I'll make documents for those two, and it'll be super easy. You'll get it right away. It's not a big deal.
One other thing, we've already set up Shorewood email addresses.
Yep.
Does it make more sense to get Dean into that position, and Sue into that position, and Tina into that position using that Gmail account?
It really does. It's not necessary because I can share documents with non-Google emails, but I just think when I put all of our names on the website, it'll be Shorewood Anderson, Shorewood Storage. It'll
Yeah.
be uniform and professional, and then you can also keep these emails separate from your personal emails in case heaven forbid, a nightmare scenario where we're requested to open up our emails to people. So
Yeah.
then all your business emails in one spot. You can just hand over the password.
So if you need help, Sue, setting that up, I think, I don't know, if Matt can help you with that.
I'm absolutely willing to help.
Pretty simple, and then
I'll
Dean,
touch base with you before we.
Give me a holler. Yep, anytime.
and we'll try to get Dean to move that direction also,
And I'll take care of that.
and he'll take care of it, so then we'll formally, everybody will be Shorewood.
And I'll update that once it's done, I'll update that on the meeting minutes, there's a new email addresses for each person.
Okay.
So if you give me the bylaws, if I get those scanned onto a document, is there anything special I need to tell them to do when they're running those 800 pages through, or just?
No, just, they would, I'm assuming they would just compile the scans into a PDF.
Yeah.
Page 1 through 800, and then that document can be uploaded onto a link onto the website so that, anybody can download it,
Okay.
or share it electronically. It's a PDF, it's basically.
You know,
It's a non-fungible.
Is there gonna be a cost for that?
well, that's what I'm asking, because I can scan it and send it. I mean, I can do the same thing,
800 pages is a lot.
I just threw that number
It's
also.
scanning, I mean, it's not like it's printing, so.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, because if you take it to any one of the Office Depots or whatever,
Yeah.
they're gonna charge you probably, because I had to have one of those books made and tabbed and everything. It
There's
was,
the print shop right here in town. But if Joe wants to do it for free.
yeah. I think as we move forward, and and I'm just gonna throw this out here, whatever we can do to get people to volunteer in, to keep things cheaper, that's what our ultimate goal is gonna be. And I think as we continue to talk and get more people involved, and I think that we have to concentrate on the board to get more people involved, because there's been a big wall that's been there in the past, and I think we just knocked that wall down. And we gotta let people know that that wall's knocked down, and hopefully they come to us as we ask for help on trying to develop some of this stuff. But in the meantime, it has fallen on us, and we can hopefully get the word out by word of mouth, because it will travel pretty fast. If people wanna, reach out to us to say, hey, how can I help? I think that would be greatly appreciated.
One way to do this is to draft a document to our neighbors and send it out through the mail. That we have this new website, that all the information that we want to share with them is going to be there. It's not even the private one yet, where everybody's going to have their own account. Just our main public one. that-
Okay, well then I think we need to make a motion to get that out, and an action item would be to, get that information out there, to start looking at that, to get information, and then you don't have to lock up, and we can post those minutes. We kind of held off on that,
Right.
and I thought we were gonna kind of move forward with that this week, at least to get the informational portion of it out, and I think it's important to let everybody know what's going on right now.
Agreed.
So if we have to print out a mailing and just pop it in everybody's mailbox,
Yeah.
I don't have a problem, Sue, I don't know, do you have a problem taking that out as your action item to,
Put them in the mailboxes.
right, if we can get a letter drafted up, and then if you wanna take on getting them printed and just fold it up and put it in
What
the
about just
mailbox.
adding the blurb to the bottom of the invoices, because that would be free. And is there any way we just highlight in yellow so it stands out, because otherwise I don't think anyone reads them.
Well, that, and not everybody get invoices, and not
Oh, they
everybody.
don't?
Right, so I think we have to do
Some
that.
email.
Right.
Oh,
So I think that the first thing that we should do is let's just get it out there, and then we can develop on billing it in other ways, I think, because it's never, we still hit a dead wall by trying to do it over the mail in our email, and we don't always get great response on it.
No, and so maybe this is our opportunity to add some of those blurbs on there about, if you'd like your statement emailed to you, to forward that information to me, so that's gonna save us, because stamps have gone up again. What are they? 60 cents?
So we really want to try to get a paperless if we can.
Yeah.
Well, then, can you put together a blurb that you want to add to that?
Yep,
Along
that
with
might
the
work
website?
together.
Yeah, we'll just get that onto that piece of paper that you can just distribute, you and
And I
Dan
will
can
not
drive
place
along.
it in the mailbox, I place them on the flight,
Yep,
I have friends in high places at the
Yeah.
post office.
Yep, and that's fine.
My
If it's-
bingo friends.
If it's a, if it's a rubber band around the flag, that'd
Yeah.
be great. And it's, you know, some of them end up on the floor or
Or
on the
on
ground,
doors
at least
or-
they know what they're looking at.
I know somebody who has a four-wheeler who could ride around.
I'll get a chance up.
And a chainsaw.
That's what I
So
agree.
if you provide them a pack of donuts.
Yeah.
He's gonna want to work for.
I don't care how you get it done, Sue, but
I could see Sue riding on the back.
No, you know what, we'll take Sue's side by side. And I think the bag of candy I gave you last week.
It's
It's
gone.
gone.
This meeting is deteriorating rapidly.
So,
What do we need to vote on?
Probably the cost for the mailer.
Yeah.
yeah,
So I first a motion to compile a letter, print it off, and distribute it to the mailboxes.
Yeah, and included in the mail bills that you're doing anyway.
yeah, yeah.
and then if there's any cost to that, bring that as a bill next week.
Okay.
So there was a motion and a second
Yeah.
to move forward with the
Aye.
information.
Aye.
Is there anything that's hot that we need to talk about right now? Do we want to touch base on that fire pit out there and that mess out there?
Yeah, Sir Joe.
I got a trailer, I just need something.
I talked to John Mauer today.
Yeah.
And he said that he has a skid steer that he could load it up for us.
Okay,
And then he said he has a place to dump it too, which I was gonna go to the dump and that costs money, so.
okay. So if you can confirm on it, I think we should move on that dirt pile, but I would like to add something right now. In the meantime, I would like to stop from that burn pile until we can create some rules for that.
Yeah.
So what I'd like,
Signage?
what I'd like to do is that I can come up with a snow fence and some cones.
Okay.
I'd like to cone that off and just put a sign on there, no burning until further notice as per the Shorewood Sanitary District, until we can come up with some rules.
In a couple of weeks, I'll have 100 feet of chain link, or not chain link, chicken wire.
Either or. I mean, real quick at work, all we have to do is kind of put a circle up there, see that, and I think we just post a sign that we'll just make real quick. Let's just make it brief, otherwise we'll pull that out of there and people are gonna start dumping that.
Correct, yes.
So,
He said anytime, usually he's gonna have it for a while here.
okay,
So he said anytime you just need to contact him and he will touch base with you.
okay. And we'll take care of that for a while.
I'm happy to kind of help Joe, and you know, you just give me a call and I'm right across the street. I can jump out there during most any day. You know, I'm home with my son working, so I'm home every day.
So I think that was the hottest.
And he'll work it
Okay,
So,
so we made a motion for that. I need a
Second,
second, please.
for what?
For
Cleaning
putting
the
a
pile.
fence around it and
Oh,
columns and, yep,
Second,
okay.
aye.
I
Aye.
All right.
have caution tape from home.
I did too, yeah.
I guess I'm still concerned about this land that's being farm rented and somebody's collecting money when it's not their
I
land.
agree.
Yeah.
Do I call the sheriff on that, or where should I go with that?
you know, okay.
Or do we have the right to plow it?
I don't think I'm
Okay.
allowed to plow somebody's crop up.
I spent $450 because everybody says, you know, when it comes to property lines, well, you line up the corner of that garage
Yeah.
with that telephone pole and over here, and it's kind of right in there. Well, I was under the assumption that our property, and I'm on the channel, way down the road from you, but I'm on the channel. I was under the assumption that our property extended across the channel, 10 feet from the high water mark over there.
Well, I have no idea.
It doesn't. It's 10 feet from the high water mark on my side of the channel. So theoretically, I don't own the waterfront. It also comes up, and there's one, the neighbor thought that the telephone pole was the property line. Well, no, it's 10 feet off of their garage, and they've been parking trailers on my lawn, you know, for 5 years or whatever. But it was $450 to find the stakes on there. Unless somebody's got a metal detector in an hour that they want to go running around out there.
Well, I think at this point, and I think most of the people around our community know that unless you've corrected your property lines, they're out of whack.
Mm-hmm.
And it has to be re-recorded with the
Mhm.
county. I hear where you're going with that, is eventually we should find out exactly where that line is
Mhm.
to stop that from happening. But the bottom line on that is, he knows that that 2 acre belongs to the Shorewood Sanitary District. And we've mentioned it over and over again not to do it. And he said that he wasn't doing it this year.
Correct.
And he moved forward with that anyways. So, you know, I don't know if we slap his head and say, Denny, or Mr. Wood, please stop doing that. I don't know what we can do to stop him at this point. Do we call the sheriff?
Do we put up snow fence?
Do we put up snow fence? I don't know, Joe, I don't know how we approach that at this particular point in time.
And until we know right where that mark is,
Right.
it's difficult to.
I mean, I would hope that all that conversation that we had, he would have refrained from doing that.
Mhm.
But it did not happen. And that, I don't know.
Well, does the guy doing it even know that he's
Probably
not
not.
supposed to?
No,
Yeah.
that's exactly it. So I don't know how the whole process of farming somebody else's land goes about. They approach the owner and say, can I farm this? I'm gonna pay you so much. If you're gonna lease the land to farm it, right?
For paying rent, yeah.
Right. The easy thing would be to just say, can you give us, you know, you're getting $10 per acre. You get $180. 2 acres of that, out of that 18 or 20 acres is ours. Give us our, you know, is it $20? I don't know what the amounts are. I'm just throwing out this dollar. It's more the whole principle that what's been going on.
And that, I'm accepting about it.
Right. I think that's the whole process. So, you know, how much do we approach that, or how far do we take it?
I think it's an important step to becoming, you know, like you said, you want us to be legitimate, you want us to move forward in a legally, you know, viable way that is respected by everyone in our community, and I think that we need to follow through with it.
Okay.
Folks, we're gonna be making some really tough decisions in the next 6 months. We're gonna piss some people off. We're gonna make some friends. But, in one of those letters that I was, you know, generating in rough drafts, decisions are made by those who show up. And that's the bottom line.
Right.
Yep.
And if they think it's important, people show up. If they don't, then I'm sorry you didn't, but call me an animal, but I was there and I listened to the facts, and that's why I came up with the answer that I did.
Yeah.
So where are we going with this? Are we making a motion to do anything about it, or are we tabling it, or,
Yeah, how do we want to move forward?
I mean, are we making a motion to approach him about it?
Let's do that first. Let's ask them first, you know.
And how do we know that there's something being planned, or it's just road stuff coming up from last year?
Well,
Yes.
How do we know before we approach it?
Right.
I saw him plant it.
Oh, you did see something?
I saw the sprayer out there, but I just thought he was killing weeds.
My mom is looking to sell her place, and she's buying a new place on my kind of I was talking to the realtor, this guy has tillable land, and it's not irrigated. He says he gets $275 per acre, non-irrigated, just to give you a rough idea. So maybe you're talking $500 to $1,000, maybe that should be given to us if he is planting there, just like I said.
Thank you.
I'm just throwing out a number that I heard from this realtor, so.
Sure, that's great.
Or do we go to the guy that's farming it and say, you realize you're farming 2 acres of our land?
Does he know? Do
Does
we
he know?
him?
I think you have to go to the person that owns the land though.
Yeah.
And again, without having the posts that say, this is what I own and this is what you own.
But he knows though.
He must have the.
We know that if you go to the interactive map,
Yeah.
and that's a rough drawing,
Mm-hmm.
we are paying taxes on 2 acres of that land.
Yeah.
That land used to be our own system. It's actually in the drawing that I showed you.
Mhm.
I have a picture. If everybody wants to see that, I can pull it up right now and show you where that is. I have it on my, might as well just show you right now. It's right on my screensaver.
Yeah, he's going to do it.
Well,
This conversation's been brought up over and over and over again. Here it is, right here.
And see, in the near future, it'll be up on the monitor.
Yeah, it'll be
well,
correct.
it's got the county has the measurements.
Right,
and
this
all
is
the reality of the
right.
description.
Here's the tax information right here. Here is that lot. It's a 2 acre lot. If you all want to see it, we can kind of pick out here. Here's the tax number and what we pay on it. It's a 2 acre lot that sits right here.
Yeah.
Can I see it?
And it's like a boomerang shape.
Is it, but the Shorewood side is, which is
Well,
two big
no,
shrubs?
it's actually almost a
No, it's
rectangle.
kind of towards the other end, more guys actually, the end of that field.
So
Yeah,
if
it
you-
starts on the top up by you and then boomerangs down in front of us.
Right.
So where are we located on this map?
You're not on this map, you're way down here, so here's my cursor. Here you were walking around heading towards my house, and up here is Shorewood Drive, or Shorewood Circle. Right here, here's the old Pat's house, the big green
Oh,
house.
okay, thank you,
right?
I need to get oriented.
Yep, and there's a corner, as you walk here, and you see this pole barn here?
Yeah,
This is actually an easement here too. Was designed for a road for this to be developed. So this
Like
is,
a quote.
yeah, this is,
And there's manholes back there.
Yes.
okay, so this may be part of our property too, I'm not 100% sure, but this is that 2 acre lot that we're talking about. And we pay taxes as Shorewood Sanitary District on that property.
how'd you end up with that?
Well, the mound system, they used to be part of our sewer system.
Oh,
So before our sewer system worked and everything dumped into this mound. And then it was updated and everything was shot out to a pond system, so it was
Yeah, yeah.
updated at some time.
would we ever sell that to Denny or whoever owns that land and just be done with it?
No.
Well, he's tried to buy it over the years and we've held off on it.
Oh,
Because I think there was plans to develop that whole property. And, you know, there's just been different people coming at us to buy that property, and we've denied it over and over again. We've kind of set it aside as a nest egg if we needed to sell it,
oh,
but we've denied selling it over and over again.
Because then what would we do? Would we sell it and then they'd be included in our sanitary district because it's right there?
Well, that'd be, if any, you know, that whole land, expansions and everything are a whole other discussion. I don't even want to get into that circle right now. That's something that we're gonna have to grapple with here in the near future because that is still live.
Yeah.
But we have bigger fish to fry at this particular time and we need to move on with that. And so, with that being said, is there anything else that we need to talk about at this time?
So I'm gonna table it for now then.
Yep, table it for now.
Okay.
I will bring it up to them, as my action item is to go to Denny and ask for the rest of our stuff from the sanitary district. And I'm gonna reach out to him via email and copy everybody. And then, you know, basically ask him politely for everything that belongs to us, all records, so on and so forth. And then ask him politely if mail does come to him, to turn it over, and please, you know, let them know or have them contact us so we give them the correct. You know,
Okay,
Oh.
are you able to make sure that any mail that we get goes to our PO box, or do you not know?
We don't know what everything is yet, that's
So
the
he,
stuff.
he's got the keys to the
You
casket.
should be
so-
able to take a look at the last couple months' bills and anything that's
Yeah,
there.
but so the one, I can't, like I said, I can't remember if it was Quality Flow or the MTBL, which is the Minnesota
Yeah.
Testing, whatever. Both of those had, the PO box address on it, but they've never come to the mailbox where I got it.
Yeah,
So that's where I'm confused about that one. The
But-
other one has the PO box for billing it to, but it has his address. So I need to call them and update it.
yeah.
Same thing with anything to do with League of Minnesota Cities, MPCA, all of it needs to go directly to the PO box versus, and I don't know what other, if he has other bills going to him, I'm not sure. So it's, you know, in good faith, he needs to make sure that he does that and updates it.
If we don't do good faith, how do we find out? Through the tax people? You know, I can't remember the last name, I keep forgetting.
the accountants probably.
The accountants.
Accountants,
The
yeah.
accountants.
Yeah.
Statement.
Right.
That would be the only other way I can think of,
So,
yeah.
okay.
So I think we're gonna miss some things, but eventually we're gonna catch it.
Yeah.
Right.
If
just wanna make
he,
sure
I
that we
mean,
catch it, you know.
and, you know, I don't know how his bookkeeping is and how he kept everything and whatever. I know he's probably got a file cabinet in his house with everything, you know, that was there. Hopefully he turns over everything. I mean, if it was me, I would just say, here you go.
Right, leave me alone.
Yeah.
Leave me alone.
Well, yeah, I just want to have our bases covered in case we don't get cooperation.
Well, we have to, exactly. I think we're moving forward without the possibility of getting cooperation. And that's the way we have to approach it this time. Anything else? Okay, we want to make a motion?
Let's go home.
Second.
Actually, I'm gonna go have a ball.
Motion is made to adjourn the meeting.